All right, John Wick, Bruce Lee, and prepping. What in the world could those have to do with each other? I'm going to tell you. Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. If you haven't been here before, I'm Steve Smith. It's good to have you. I do want to welcome all the new people, both on the YouTube channel and on the Patreon channel. It's great to have you. Um, I'm trying a new mic here today. Yeah, people are dragging me into the 21st century, where I'm barely into the 20th, probably, because I'm such a basic, non-techie person. But I'm trying a wireless mic here because I've always been tethered to the phone, as it were, by the wire, and this allows me to get a little bit further away from the phone if I need to, I guess. And so we'll just see how it works. If it sucks, then I'll go back to do the other one or try something else. But I'm anxious to, I'm eager. I am properly used the word anxious. I'm eager to see how this works. I have a feel I've put it on the desk there instead of on my shirt, and I have a feeling it might pick up the sounds of me putting up and down my weenie weeder. If you don't know what I mean by that, just stick around. You'll learn. You'll learn some things here in the group. Um, I finally forced myself to watch John Wick. I guess there's like a million of them. I watched the first one. I'll get back to that. I forgot to tell you that this video, as all my videos, are brought to you by my books, the Stone Knot series. Man, I bet that sounded loud. I might have to put this up on my shirt. The Stone Knot series, the complete book collection of how to prepare for, how to survive, and how to rebuild after the collapse of everything, available on Amazon, linked down below, in either paperback or Kindle, or through my website, stonemont.us. And you can get me to sign them to you, autograph them, sign over to your Uncle Bob, whatever you'd like me to do. That is also down below, stonemont.us. If you haven't read them, you should. I have so many people who have read through them multiple times, and they say they learn something new every time they read. I have some people who have read through it 5 times, and just until they wait for the next book come out. I'm working on number 7. They just keep starting reading the whole series again. Thank you all, man. You are some real stone miners. By the way, I have some cool stuff. The T-shirts are going to be out here in a couple of weeks, as the Stone Mountain mug. I am really excited about that. Okay, so finally, I forced myself through to watch John Wick the movie. I'd tried to a couple of times before. What does this have to do with prepping, Steve? You'll find out. I tried to several times before. I don't think I made it more than 20 or 25 minutes into it before I just had to, no, no, no. But I said, this is such a part of our culture that I need to know what everybody's talking about, this John Wick junk. So I did. I watched it. What do I think of John Wick? um, wow. What can I say? I mean, somebody explain to me what the attraction is here. I mean, I think I know, and it's sad. It really is sad. I look at it. I mean, the only thing more painful than watching Keanu Reeves try to act is watching the fight scenes, whether it's all the little jujitsu stuff that he does or the shooting or whatever. I mean, that stuff is just downright silly. And I thought to myself, should I watch John Wick 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a million, whatever, just to give it a more of a chance? And I decided, nah, you've given this enough of a chance. Some of the story, it's a typical story. There were some good actors in it. Keanu Reeves not being one of them. Um, Several of the Russian, the Vor, they didn't ever really come out and say that, but it was the Vor. If you understand, if you are familiar with what the Vor are, there was some pretty good acting in there. There was just also some terrible acting. Uh, I won't keep hitting on him. I hear he's kind of a nice guy. I don't know. So I'll leave him alone. So let's set John Wick over here for a moment. Okay. Bruce Lee. What does Bruce Lee have to do with John Wick and prepping? You'll see. Okay, Bruce Lee, people loved his movies, right? I couldn't stand his movies. They were silly. They were stupid. Okay, good. And I have friends who were in the movies. Bob Wall. Did you watch? I don't even remember which one it was. And I've laughed about this. And Bob told me a lot of stories about Lee. I never knew Lee, but I have friends of mine who knew him very well. Bob Wall being one. Um, but they say he was a great guy. Well, yeah, 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 very, a lot of ego. So great guy. That's whatever. I won't get into that. But his movies were just silly, and people just love him. And why that appealed to the Western mind? Now he came from Hong Kong, and his movies were huge in Hong Kong, but they like that kind of stuff, that jump up in the air and fight for a couple of minutes and then come back down. And there's actually people who think, I mean, young American people or European people, even I guess, who think maybe I can actually do that. You know, well, a good friend of mine who has passed, Jim Harrison, who some of you may know. You've heard me talk about him before. He is the one who actually taught Lee using the nunchucks against resistance. Okay. One time we were sitting around eating one time, and I told him I didn't think much of Lee, and because I'd just seen his movies. And he asked me, well, how come? And I said, well, the movies are stupid. And he said, oh, well, I never saw, I didn't see his movies, but I didn't see that. But yeah, Lee knew what he was doing. He was legit. Now, let me slide in here because there's always this ongoing, never ending argument about Bruce Lee. Would he have beat up everybody in the world? Or would he have won against Chuck Norris? Would he have won against, that's silly, and those are stupid arguments. Let me just slide that in here because Lee never fought. Yes, he fought. I saw. No, he didn't. He wasn't a tournament fighter, and he wasn't a real fighter. Now he might have gotten his scraps in Hong Kong when he was Cha-Cha champion, but he wasn't a real fighter. He was an academic. He was smart. Later, after Jim told me about him, I read a couple of his books, and I agree with everything that he said. But he was a theoretician. Okay, that's what he was, a theoretician. Doesn't mean he wasn't strong. Doesn't mean he wasn't capable. But he never put it out there. And did he train other people? Yeah, Joe Louis said that he credits Lee with improving his fighting style. And Harrison told me that he showed him a couple of things that could be improved in that, and I've adopted some of that. But we have actually been in the fights. Okay, we have been in the world, and Lee had not been. So where does this come? Matter of fact, Lee said one time he's made the statement. He said, he wasn't afraid of anybody. Um, but the last two people that he would want to meet in a real fight would be Mike Stone and Jim Harrison. And he described Jim's system, which was Ronin Jutsu, as not complicated, but simple and deadly. And that's exactly, now we're getting to where I'm going to apply this to preparedness. Um, so why? Oh, there was something else. I just put one up over on American Reversion also. That when I played it back, I saw that they had put in what was it? A commercial for what are those? I have never played a video game in my life. I've seen a couple that my kids play. Call of Duty. That's the one. Why do so many American males, and I mean above the age of 12, and I mean above the age of 21, why do so many American males, I can't speak for European, play that game? Why do they play fantasy games? Why do they put themselves in the role of something and get off on it that they have never done, will never do? What is the attraction there? There's some psychology there. Okay. Um, Another thing is the wrestling stuff. I've told you about that. I'll do that on another one someday. All of these things put out fake. I won't even say fake reality because it has nothing to do with reality. Okay, John Wick is totally fake. It's all fantasy. Bruce Lee movies were all fake. They're all fantasy. It doesn't mean that a couple of his things, that his fast punch, like when he uh, you know, well, I won't get into that, but most of it is might be a good story, but it's all fake, and it's the fake stuff that people get off on. When I talk or when I hear people talk about John Wick, they're always talking about the fight scene. They're never talking about the story behind it, which is kind of interesting. The story behind it could be interesting, but they're not talking about the story. They're talking about the fights. In Bruce Lee, they talk about the fights. In the what is it? Call of Duty. I mean, I watched the commercial of Call of Duty. It was maybe, yeah, I mean, the ad that they put on my video. I don't know, 30 seconds, something like that. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I can't imagine how a grown man could spend any time doing that. If I've offended somebody out there, I'm sorry. I don't. It wasn't my intent to offend you personally. I would say though, why are you doing it? How does this apply to prepping? Because too many people out there fall into the prepper fantasies, and I see it. I see. I don't see it very much here at all in the comments. When I visit other channels and I read the comments, I see it all over the place. All over the place. Tough talk, tough sayings. I've heard this and I've heard that, and you need to do this. Such total BS that has permeated the preparedness field for so many years. I think I told you one time that I went to an actual prepper meeting of a prepper group one time. Gosh, this has been so many years ago. I don't remember if it's before I wrote my first book or not. They had scheduled a meeting. I couldn't make it. Kelly said she'd go. She came back and she says, "Man, you can't believe these people. These people are out of bounds. These people they have no idea what they're talking about, but they are so sure about what they're talking about." And I says, "Really? How could that possibly be?" So I was able to go to the next one, and man, she was right. I sat in a room of people, most of whom were morbidly obese. Now, if that hurts somebody's feelings, I'm not sorry. If that's you, fix it. Fix it. You can fix it. You are morbidly obese unless you have some kind of medical problem that you just can't be done because you eat too much and you don't work out or you're not active enough. You're lazy and you're gluttonous. That's why a person becomes morbidly obese. Period. Okay? How about a little tough love? It's time for a little tough love, although I don't have that many stupid people that come on this channel. So this might be for those who are wandering by. Yeah, that's what you get here. You get the truth. Would you like the truth? Stick around. Would you like some more prepper fantasy? There's plenty of other channels out there that are more than willing to spoon feed that to you every day. And just swallow that stuff and let some drip down your little chin, chin, chin. And maybe that, satisfies your needs. But it shouldn't. So I went to this meeting, and these people, they were sitting around. They couldn't have made it to the door without getting out of breath, but they were talking like they knew everything in the world, and the stuff they were talking about was the stupidest stuff I've ever heard. Some of it was so basic that I can't even imagine why anybody would bring it up. Other stuff was so esoteric, so out there, so weird, so never going to happen that I also couldn't imagine why they would even bring it up. You know what I didn't see? I didn't see any of the meat and potatoes of true preparedness. I didn't see the stuff that really needs to be done. I saw a whole lot of John Wick and Bruce Lee movies, and I didn't see the substance. You know, so many people in the preparedness world follow that preparedness as kind of a fantasy. It's an escape from their daily life that they're really not that thrilled about. Their daily life doesn't satisfy them. I understand that. I mean, I do. It's life. If you're not out there doing stuff, can be very boring. Can be very unfulfilling. It can. And so a lot of people do get into, a lot of people in the preparedness circles have gotten into it to fill that void. And that's good. But you should fill the void with the meat and potatoes, not with the meringue, not with the fluff. Okay? You shouldn't fill it with fantasy. And so, what my advice is, I guess what my message is here today is get get off of the stupidity. Get off of the fantasy. Get out of the fantasy. It doesn't do you any good. It might give you a high of talking about certain things for a while, but when you're done fantasizing about it, what do you have? You haven't done anything. A you haven't taken a positive step toward anything. You have thought about something, satisfied yourself with that thought, made yourself feel that thinking something has accomplished something, and it's kept you away from the real work you ought to be doing to prepare. Now, we have some real interesting times coming our way. The one that I just put up over on American Reversion was it was asking, is this the revolution? Well, we have just started politically. If you didn't happen to see Trump come out swinging, don't come on here, by the way, because I'm going to make my statement. Don't come on here and make some kind of stupid statement that Trump is controlled opposition. Okay, you can't support that, and it's your opinion. And it doesn't matter. That's another one of those fantasy things. Okay, if you're interested in the political part, if you're interested in what's going on in our world, which you should be, come over to the American Reversion channel and subscribe there also. That's where we cover all this stuff. But he came out swinging last night, and I haven't heard him ever talk like that before, and it looked like it is on. So I think we're in for some really interesting times. We know what's happening with the ports shutting down. We know what's happening with inflation. We know what's happening with the phony job figures. We know what's happening with fuel. We know what's happening with our supply lines and our food um, supply. We know all of that. We know what's happening with our southern border. We know all of it. But knowing it is not enough. Preparing to deal with it and to live well through it, while those of us on the American Reversion side fight against these things. So up to you whether you want to be in the fight or hide. In active shooter training, we would always teach people run, hide, or fight. Okay, well, it's the same. I've never been much of a runner, and I've never been much of a hider. I can, but it's not my preference. I've always pretty much been a fighter. If somebody wants to start something, let's go, and let's go right now. Um, but there are people that want to run. There are some who want to hide. And there are some who want to fight. If you're one of those who wants to fight, come over to the American Reversion channel. We won't talk about it too much here. I'm going to stay with the preparedness here. But the problems are coming right and left. You know, and your preparedness needs to address that, but it needs to address it realistically. Concentrate on the things that matter. Concentrate on the things that are actually the solutions to the problems, the solutions to those things that possibly may happen, not out there in fantasy land. Okay. Now, I will say something about um, what is not a fantasy. Had a guy come past the house. Um, I'll call him my brother. He's a new acquaintance. Like the guy a lot. He wrote a book. We share a lot of the common background in our lives. So in that sense, I call him a brother. He has put together. Let me back up. Occasionally, I will get on some people that will say it's impossible to be fully prepared, and I'd say, "Have you read my books?" I don't have to read your books. Nobody can be fully prepared. Well, you haven't read my books. Because I tell you there exactly how to be fully, completely prepared. You don't believe it? Okay. Well, the guy that came past yesterday, he's actually one of our subscribers here, and both on YouTube and on Patreon. I won't identify him because there's not time to. I think someday I'm going to interview him because his story is fascinating. But he said we were talking about this. He has developed pretty much what I write about in my books. Retired police officer, also former military. He did without reading my books. He did it on his own. He only started reading my books. And he says he read the first one. He says, well, hell, that's what I did. I know so many people out there. Well, not so many. I mean, that sounds like a big number. I know a number of people out there who are completely prepared, self-sufficient. Several of whom are people who, as a result of reading my books, went out and bought farms and put in orchards and gardens and all sorts of things. They have established their stone mods. It can be done. That is not fantasy. It can be done. It's all about whether the person is willing to put in the work to do it. But you see, putting in the work is not fantasy. The fantasy is out here just thinking up new problems and thinking about cool stuff. It's the John Wick. It's the Bruce Lee movie. Stop that stuff and learn how to actually approach the situation. Learn how to fight. I'm going to do one over on Patreon here in a little bit about dirty fighting, about street fighting. Put one up the other day about from an old video from that a guy I know made years ago, and we're talking about real fighting, not the kind of BS you see on YouTube or most of the other places around. So again, if you're not with us on Patreon, you need to be. Come on over there. It's just you're missing so much if you're not, because not just the stuff that I put up. We have such a bunch of smart people over there who are adding to the knowledge base so much. Remember the books? They're available on Amazon. Link is down below. You can get them in paperback or Kindle, or directly from me in paperback, signed if you would like, through our website, stonemont.us. Yes, t-shirts coming soon. Cups coming soon for all you real die-hard stone monters. So that's it for today. Somebody tell me what the attraction is of these movies and these video games, will you? But I know I wasn't talking to most of you, but there's too much fantasy going on there in our lives. It's all about fantasy. It's a way to escape reality. You don't want to escape reality. You want to deal with reality. So you will be ready for reality when real reality comes knocking, right? Okay. You all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.